Hello, everybody. For all of us in the FLETC community, the year 2020 was a year we will remember. And we should remember this year. We should remember the challenges we faced as federal employees and the challenges FLETC faced as a federal institution with a mission essential function. And as well, the challenges each of us faced personally as individuals. Few of us have escaped completely unscathed and unscarred. All of us have family, friends, or neighbors who have lost employment or been able to complete school. Some of us have family members that have been sickened, and some of us have ourselves become ill. Others of us have family or friends or neighbors that have been taken by the pandemic. It's true that this year has held some hard, cold, cruel times, and though there are still some hard times ahead, 2020 was just the latest in a string of years of challenges, all of which we successfully addressed. We closed 2017 and opened 2018 with Hurricanes Irma and Maria and the damage they caused. We closed 2018 and opened 2019 with Hurricane Dorian, followed shortly thereafter by the longest government shutdown in history. We, all of us, as members of the federal law enforcement training community, learned from the experience, and we can be proud we've carried some of those lessons with us into the future. And not at 2020. This year, as we closed 2019 and opened 2020, we faced a completely new and unexpected set of circumstances. I remember in January, I guess, of 2020, we began the year hearing these distant whispers of a possible threat of some sort of a global pandemic thing. So I think a lot of us expected maybe something like the H1N1 swine flu pandemic we had back in 2009. You may remember that the swine flu lasted about 10 months total. But our experience with COVID-19 has proven to be something different. I think we're already into the 10th month. Anyway, within a few weeks after the year started, the grinding reality of the COVID-19 pandemic struck home, and we were forced to suspend in-person training, as you know. The virus became, behind the pandemic, this COVID-19 thing at the time was so new, so exotic, that science and experience offered us no clue, no lessons for us. There was no test, no treatment, no vaccine, and no set protocols. We used what we did know as the anchor for our plans. And the federal law enforcement training community, that is FLETC and all our participating organizations and DHS headquarters, all understood the importance of our training mission, and we pursued it with energy, I have to say. We paused in-residence training operations only long enough to assess, plan, and reconstitute our training operations. Our greater FLETC community began a structured and thoughtful planning effort the day after we suspended training. And within a few weeks of very hard work, we developed a comprehensive restart plan, and we were able to restart training on June 17. We continue to train, and we graduate an average of 410 basic officers a week, which is just about enough to keep pace with the number of officers that leave federal service every week. So since we restarted training in June, we've had students and staff test positive. And that's at Artesia, Charleston, and Glencoe. In every case, we take immediate actions, identify the individuals, isolate, do the contact tracing, and take whatever follow-up actions are necessary. Now today, in fact, we became aware of a set of positive tests at Glencoe, and we're in the process of taking the steps we always take to identify, isolate, contact trace, and follow up. We're getting pretty good at this, unfortunately. The good news for all of us is that every day, as long as we continue to follow the rules, we grow closer to the time when we will once again have control over the outcomes in our personal and professional lives that we like. But in 2020, we were much more than COVID-19. We found ways to take maximum advantage of all of our resources. We organized and hosted seminars and conferences in the virtual universe, our Mass Casualty Event Summit, Cyber Conference, By the way, we reached well over 7,000 participants in those two things. That's 10 times the number of participants we would have expected if we'd done it the old way with in-person training or conferences. We use virtual platforms to increase our participation in our curriculum development and curriculum review process. I'm kind of proud of the work our revitalized public affairs office. They were everywhere, documenting our 50th anniversary, covering our daily progress towards our FLETC vision. We installed new vehicle barriers and systems at Artesia and a new vehicle maintenance facility at Artesia. We began construction of a new FBS building at Glencoe. Did some repairs to 210 that are in progress still. Initiated actions to acquire more land for use as a training space in Cheltenham, which will really make a big difference in the National Capital Region and for us as an organization. And I'm proud to say we cemented our presence in Charleston for the foreseeable future with some agreements with the Coast Guard and all of our other tenants up there and the Ports Authority in Charleston. So good work by everybody on that. I have to say our selection of the Associate Director for Training DC and AD Lemons and AD Rodini, AD Munchie, AD Harpole, Chief of Staff Taco, really increased our expertise everywhere and reinforced our connections with our major customers this is where our new ADs came from. The National Capital Region Training Director and our state, local, tribal division collaborated to deliver human trafficking awareness training virtually to more than 800 state, local, and tribal law enforcement personnel. We moved in-person business meetings to the virtual universe, sort of like this one. Our training and mission readiness divisions not only invented new tools and processes to clean and renovate our firing ranges, they actually put their backs into it and did the work themselves. Our PT division led a team effort to re-engineer the main athletic training buildings at Glencoe, dating back to 1963 and earlier, making superior use of both the indoor space and the outdoor space. So in many ways, 2020 was really a landmark year for the Federal Law Enforcement Training Centers. Our 50th anniversary year was marked by extraordinary adaptation to unprecedented circumstances. Looking back, I can say, listen for it now. Neither are we what we once were, nor are we yet, although we will become. Today we're in the first quarter of FY 2021, and as we execute our mission essential functions and pursue our strategic vision, we now face a mix of conditions we've never experienced before, at least the mix, sort of an imperfect storm. We've managed through pandemics before. We've managed through flu outbreaks before. We've operated under continuing resolutions before. We've continued to operate smoothly under every national election cycle since we were formed in 1970. But we've never had an opportunity, I guess, we've never had the opportunity to manage through all of these things at once. And so we're moving forward cautiously through this imperfect storm of events. We know that experts suggest we're likely to find ourselves in a flu outbreak as winter approaches. At the same, COVID-19 appears to be spiking both nationally and, as you know, through various hotspots throughout the country. We have a continuing resolution that expires December 11th that carries our funding. We have a national election in less than a week. And no matter what the results of the national election, we can expect changes in national leadership in the next 60 days. All of this is to state out loud something you already know. We're going to have to keep a steady hand on the tiller. We'll have to negotiate the obstacles to progress as they come to us and continue to execute our mission essential functions. Our plan now for 2021 is to continue in the second quarter of this year with a training load similar to what we have been able to carry in the first quarter. But as always, we're going to take every opportunity to increase our throughput the instant the opportunity presents itself. Now, we really do have every reason to be hopeful that this federal law enforcement training community will continue to explore and innovate, and in the end, excel. So I apologize for that long introduction, but I think it was important to go over 2021 and bring us up to date today. So with that, I'd like to introduce the heart and soul of the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center here, Deputy Director Bill Fowler.
Okay, thanks, Director.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. I also would like to thank everyone for your efforts this past year. It certainly has been a challenging year, to say the least. I want to start off, though, with some breaking news here in Glencoe. We're currently working on several student cases that just tested positive late last night. We've quarantined the positive students and are isolating the entire class. We're also taking steps to isolate and test any other students that were in close contact with those students. We're working closely with the partner agency and are conducting contact tracing as we speak to ensure we identify anyone that may have been in close contact with those students, which includes staff and contractors as well. We're confident in our process, as the director mentioned earlier, especially the contact tracing process to determine who needs to be isolated and tested. We'll share information later on once we have more of it. And I just wanted to get this out right away to all of you so that you knew the facts and know the steps that we have taken thus far to contain those positive cases. As everybody knows, our plan is very comprehensive, excuse me. We made changes to the registration process, isolation of students, testing of students and staff, re-engineered facilities, changes to training delivery, changes to the training venues, cleaning and sanitation. All that work that everybody did last year truly has put FLETC at the top of the leaderboard when it comes to law enforcement training. We shared our plan with numerous fed, state, local, international agencies, and even other institutions to include colleges. Recently, I briefed at the International Association of Chiefs of Police at the Education and Training Committee on the success of our plan thus far. We shared our plan with them. They all look to us to see how our plan has actually been implemented and how successful we've been to date. So they're looking to us to implement their own plans and make the right decisions. It's been tough, though, the isolation of students staying on center. We know it's been difficult for them, but really appreciate student services and the rec associations at all sites for stepping up. They have a lot planned for the students. It's going to get a little bit more challenging now with the holidays coming up and those students having to stay on center. But really appreciate everybody that's leading those efforts to take care of our students. Testing and contact tracers. We've had volunteers since June that have done the testing and the contact tracing. Appreciate everybody's efforts there, but we need more. So please consider stepping up and becoming a tester, and also consider taking that contact tracing course. It's about 5 hours online, but it's well worth it. I took it myself and learned a lot from it. So if you needed any more information on that, you can reach out to OSBR. Mask use. We have to keep up our guard. The director mentioned it a little bit as well. Cases are up around the country. We need to continue to do our part. We take tremendous measures to keep the student population clean and to keep all of our facilities, all of our centers safe for all of us. Let's make sure that we continue to wear our masks. Director talked a little bit about Q2 coming up. As he mentioned, it's going to look a lot like Q1. We still have a focus on level 1. Agencies still have backlogs. So those 10 weeks that we were down back in the spring, agencies continued to hire. And one thing that agencies are doing now that they hadn't done in the past, really, where they were hiring and they were putting people in the field and they were stashing them away until they can get them to training. So we still have a backlog, most of the agencies do, and we still need to continue to move forward with developing or delivering all that level 1 training across the board so that those people can get their badges and guns and get out to the field. We are going to look at exports. We've been doing some exports, but we have to prioritize those. Again, we'll look to continue some of those on a case-by-case basis as it comes up throughout Q2. All right, and lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about the workforce changes that we've seen. Telework. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a believer at first, but you proved me wrong. We were able to execute at the end of the year. We really didn't have any issues execution-wise. One thing I just wanted to mention, which something that made telework possible and FLETC possible and everything, was the work by the CIO directorate. They really did a great job in working on some of those challenges that we had with the network capability. So appreciate that. But overall, based on the success of our how we were able to operate the past couple of quarters, we're going to look to see what the new FLETC looks like. MRSD has taken the lead and will explore any options that we have moving forward. So they're going to start looking at it. They're going to do a study. They're going to see how we can actually move forward with continued telework. As I mentioned before, we were successful last year, but however, don't forget, we were limited in our operations. We were only holding level 1 classes, which are basic classes. We're operating about 50% of our normal throughput across all training delivery points. We didn't have any advanced classes. Several agencies didn't train. Dorms and training venues were not full. All right, so we weren't conducting hardly any exports, and there's hardly any travel. So there's a lot of work that we did, but there's a lot of work that we in focusing on the delivery of that level 1 training that we didn't do as well. So we have to look at all of that, and I trust MRSD is going to look at that both on the support side and the mission side to see what that future looks like for our workforce. So on that, as the director likes to say, more to come. I'm going to turn it over now to Associate Director for Training Ops, Rick Deasy. Rick?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy. Good morning, colleagues. I'd like to pick up on the theme of unified front and unified effort over the past year. I truly appreciate the work that you have done with the participating organizations, POs. So I'd take a few minutes just to recognize the work there. Steve Bialis, Polo, and the work with TMO that they have done to communicate with our POs. We have moved the quarterly to a weekly, and Steve, keep that communication going. Over 850 requests for information over the last 6 months. That's double what we had the previous 6 months. So we'll continue those Monday and weekly meetings just to keep the communication going as we head into 21. I'd like to thank the POs for the work and the communication on the PO survey. We had a 90% return this year, and the CFOs reminded me that first in 14 years that we had 100% return on our interagency agreements with our POs within our timeline. So thank you for that communication and the effort. To flatten the communication and to speed it with our executives, Assistant Director Cruzan created the Training Executive Forum. And that is a forum to share information with our executives also out of the National Capital Region and across our enterprise. So we've created that forum to ensure that we also can share among the executives in best practices. In response to surveys, we started in September to meet one-on-one. So Mrs. Rodini and myself and MRSD are sitting down with our POs, and since the beginning of the fiscal year, we met with ATF, BOP, CBP, AMO Academy, CGIS, FPS, USCIS, USDA, OIG Academy, Marshal Service, NCIS, TSA, and our Forest Service partners. So we continue those one-on-ones. We want to address those concerns in the survey, and this is one way we'll do that. We'll continue this effort throughout the rest of the quarter. In the collaboration efforts, I'm very thankful to our sister agencies, the DEA and FBI, for allowing us to come and visit with you in July, share our thoughts on Academy and our COVID-19 protocols. To Assistant Director McDermott and Special Agent in Charge Baboudi, thank you very much. It was very, very thoughtful engagement. We validated many of our procedures, and it was very similar in our thoughts, and we wish you very continued success in your academies. And just on the directorates front, I would like to thank them for the work that they have done with TMO to work many of their efforts in the virtual spaces the deputy was alluding to. We opened up our new collaboration tool October 13th, and already we have over 230 users sharing information. That tool is available for you on the FLETC platform. Encourage you to continue having those good dialogues. Laser Working Group has been stood up there. We're talking about social media and law enforcement challenges and instructor certifications. So that's designed for you as POs. You'll see our messages. You'll see our daily feed up there. So go ahead and continue to leverage that as a community of interest. Across our directorates, great work always in TMO on the FLETC front. I'd like to welcome and our newest division chief, Amber Reed, for leading those efforts. Thank you, Amber. We'll continue to press on that front. And TTO really taking advantage of the FLETC forums, as the director alluded to, Mass Casualty Forum in August, Cyber Conference, Protective Service Operation Virtual Conference. First time that we've been able to touch that community. International Training Division, reaching out to our leaders and shifting training into the virtual distance learning platforms, state and local. Later today, we have Assistant Chief Herjak from Seattle PD talking about leading through crisis. And our cyber, continuing to work on our tech talks and IOD with fraud talks coming. So more to come in 21 on that front. Over in the NCR, continue to pressing the HTAT as the director talked to, but also opening up our FACT training again and our requalifications for our state and local friends and partners. And also on the opening up the training venues and shifting some of our training up there, especially on our exports and our advanced training. So looking at all our training venues to increase. And CTO, appreciate the work that you have done in our basic programs, our basic instructor training program, the CRCs and the curriculum review conferences that you have run in the development conferences to look at our review and use of force and the work that you did in our integrated use of force forum with LGD. Thank you very much. Also looking at dropped in some new technology. You'll see that, and appreciate the firearms division, the work that they did, the transition from our old judgment pistol to now our force application and simulation training and our new virtual technology coming into the center. So with all that said, really appreciate all the work that all the directorates are doing on all the fronts. Wish you the very best in 21. Just a reminder, again, on our protocols, our C19 protocols. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Director Ariana Rodini, specifically talk about our training management operations for Q2. Ariana?
Thank you, ADT, and good morning to all. So I will be providing a scheduling update for all the staff and POs that are listening today. For Q1, we do remain committed to the delivery of as much level 1 training as we're able to schedule. Those programs which began during fiscal year 20 will remain on a 6-day training week until graduation. For all classes beginning in fiscal year 2021, the training schedule will return to a 5-day work week. So to reiterate, level 1 training is training that prepares federal law enforcement personnel to perform the essential tasks for the position into which they were hired, or for the essential tasks associated with new duties to which they have been assigned. This training is FLETC's top priority mission essential function. For Q2, we remain focused on scheduling that level 1 training. We've asked the participating organizations to review a list of programs recommended for cancellation and to provide in writing if a program is now deemed level 1. We recognize for many there are new programs that we need to add due to the skill or training gap that may have been caused by FLETC or agency suspension of certain programs. As you know, when we developed the master schedule for fiscal year 2021, there were 611 classes scheduled to begin in Q2. We've put together a list of approximately 266 classes for consideration to cancel. This proposed cancellation list was provided last week by DC Sean Beltramo of our Training Resources Coordination Division for review. As a reminder, written requests for consideration regarding additional identified critical training, the deadline is today, COB today, for submission in writing. Through at least the end of Q2 for fiscal year 21, all students will adhere to the 10-day observation period prior to the start of training. All students will continue to remain lodged on center and will be expected to remain on center during the duration of their training. And FLETC continues to discuss options with the DHS medical team to identify ways to increase throughput. We're also leveraging all training delivery points to deliver programs to ensure we're able to schedule programs as necessary. Export programs, as the deputy mentioned, will be placed on the schedule on a case-by-case basis. And as always, we take into account the COVID mitigation factors of the location for training delivery, and all export training are approved at the ADT and deputy director level. We will look to start publishing the Q2 schedule next week, beginning November 2nd, and classes which were scheduled to begin in early January will be pushed slightly to the right by a few days to ensure personnel are not traveling during the holiday. We plan on doing a similar exercise to plan for Q3, as considerations related to COVID and the conditions are constantly changing. So at the start of Q2, we will start looking to make decisions related to Q3, with the plan to begin scheduling for Q3 no later than the end of January. With that, I'd like to introduce Human Capital Officer Candace Porter, who will address specific human capital issues. Thank you.
Thank you, AD Rodini. As we mark 7 months of operating in the COVID-19 pandemic as your Human Capital Office, our main focus has been and will continue to be addressing your human resources needs. HCO staff members continue to perform most of their duties from a telework posture. That said, they are completely available for their servicing responsibilities via phone calls and Teams meetings. The majority of our servicing functions transitioned relatively seamlessly to telework back in March. Our one holdout was specifically retirement applications, but in June, the Office of Personnel Management temporarily adjusted their procedures to allow for a digital signature on retirement packages. And as we draw to the close of the year, under normal circumstances, there are increases in retirement applications. If you are considering retirement, please submit your paperwork as early as possible, up to 90 days in advance to allow for processing. Since March, the HCO staff has provided information and guidance to employees, timekeepers, supervisors, and managers on a host of topics to include telework, the correct coding of your time cards, and leave categories, and most recently, the tax deferral. The President issued a memorandum deferring some types of payroll taxes for certain individuals in order to alleviate financial hardships and provide temporary relief during these challenging times. On August 28th, the Internal Revenue Service issued guidance to temporarily defer employee Social Security tax withholdings. If your biweekly gross pay minus tax-exempt items such as health insurance is less than $4,000, the majority of your federal payroll taxes between mid-September and December 31st will be deferred to 2021. The Office of Management and Budget directed all executive branch agencies to implement the tax deferral. As such, no payroll providers, departments, agencies, or employees will be able to opt out of the deferral at this time. The payback period for the deferred taxes will occur between January 1st and April 30th of 2021. DHS is working with other agencies to develop repayment procedures. As we get more information and prior to any future adjustments or repayments, we will communicate additional details to help you plan your finances. Turning to use or lose leave, employees who have an annual leave which extends their personal leave ceiling will forfeit that leave if not used by January 2nd, 2021. For most employees, the maximum amount of annual leave that may be carried over is 30 days or 240 hours. All FLETC employees are encouraged to maximize remaining opportunities to schedule and take use or lose leave when possible. Annual leave not taken as a result of COVID-19 related shelter-in-place orders or mobility restrictions, deferred vacations, or other personal decisions will not be factors considered in restoring leave. If you have or are projected to accrue use or lose leave, work with your supervisor to schedule this leave in WebTA. Forfeited annual leave will not be eligible for restoration if it is not scheduled and approved prior to November 21st. WebTA will be the source of evidence for approval. Approved leave may subsequently be denied when necessary for work requirements. If denied, save the WebTA record of the denial. Before leave may be considered for restoration by the FLETC director, The leave was requested and approved in WebTA by November 21st and subsequently denied. The cancellation was based on an emergency, operational demand, mission requirement, or other business exigency, or due to personal medical illness. Another option, employees may donate use or lose leave to eligible employees in the voluntary leave transfer program. A list of eligible recipients is available in WebTA. Finally, we are 7 months into this new normal, and we have learned so much about ourselves, our coworkers, and our families. We certainly have all worked together in big and small ways for the successful reconstitution of the FLETC training mission, but there may be issues that you find require some additional resources. So let me remind you once again of the DHS Employee Resources page and FLETC Employee Assistance Program. Support is available to you and your family. FLETC staff and families can call 844-725-7619 or visit www.deeroakseap.com for assistance. So let's all stay on this journey that already has us envisioning the future of what it looks like for a different yet strong FLETC. And now turning it over to Site Director Terry Todd in Artesia.
Thank you, Ms. Porter, and greetings everyone on this fine morning. I'd like to start off talking about our Artesia's Level 1 projections for this FY going into FY21. So our current projections, or at least I initially started with the 6 of the Uniform Police Training programs, but one's already been added, so we're up to 7 for this year. And if history proves correct, we'll probably have the opportunity to add several more through the end of the FY. The Bureau of Indian Affairs, they've projected 4 BIA basic police programs, and they've also projected 5 of their basic corrections programs for this FY. And then Border Patrol's projected 35 of their basic agent programs for this year. Both BIA and the Border Patrol have quite a backlog, a lot of new recruits in the queue. So historically, we've seen a cancellation or 2 in all 3 of those programs, in the BIA basic police corrections and in the Border Patrol. But speculation is for this FY, we won't see any cancellations and probably hold to the class size numbers also. So that's good news for us for throughput. Our center and agency advanced initial projections were 74 programs. However, we all know COVID has an obvious direct impact in those areas, also including exports. So that's a work in progress as we go through the FY. New for this year, the FAMs have indicated a tentative restart of the FAMTEP Center Basic Program. That program is conducted exclusively in Artesia, the FAM Basic Training, and we have not done any of those in just about 3 years. So they've got a pretty significant backlog also. Their initial discussions were targeting the first quarter of FY22, but we may see a program or 2 by the end of this FY, and that would be welcomed to have those back here on site. And timely with that, the FAMTEP program, CRC working groups, it was due for one this year, and the working groups have been completed, and TMO is working towards a CRC date. And once that's complete, OIL will be very well poised to provide the FAMs very relevant and current training for those new recruits as those programs come to fruition. Also, the Border Patrol will be piloting a new program this year entitled the Processing Center Coordinator. It's an 8-week agency-specific basic, 50 students per session. And initial indications are that post-pilot, there will be a significant need for multiple iterations in the future. These agents, once they actually graduate, they will provide a good outlet for the Border Patrol agents once they bring detainees into their facilities. They won't have to stay there and do all the processing with that. They'll turn them over to these processing center coordinators, and then they'll go back out to the field. So it'll be an excellent efficiency for the Border Patrol once those are up and running. Next, I'd like to talk about our FLETC's 25-year master plan workshop, and specifically the one that was held at Artesia from March 2nd to the 5th, and I find was very, very productive exercise. The workshop was very well attended by FLETC and PO staff. We were averaging about 20 participants a day, representing 36 different stakeholders, and those numbers don't include the contractor that was there doing the project or the FLETC Glencoe representatives that added so much value to us traveling out for that. But basically, we kept a 48-person classroom full for those 3 days and the duration of that exercise. Not another part of that workshop, there were 48 different individuals interviewed from, again, multiple stakeholders. And the information that came from those interviews, from their experience here at Artesia and in the training environment, augmented 486 pre-workshop survey responses. So all that said, the information that was gathered in that workshop, put together in that workshop, and correlated that workshop represented all of our participating organizations, our FLETC staff, from instructors to admin support to facility support. And that's so a really good cross check on that. Since Artesia has two very distinct different facilities, one we call the East and then we call the West facility in the range, each one was looked at very in depth. And the East facility, after its review, identified potential growth in classrooms, dormitories, additional training venues for labs and PEs and upgrades in those areas, some industrial improvements and security enhancements, and it equated to about 513,000 additional square feet of potential capacity expansion. The same review and vision was applied to the West facility, identifying future expansion opportunities for classrooms, firing ranges, improvements and changes, training venues for labs and PEs, additional industrial requirements such as weapons and ammunition storage, and security, all totaling about 586,000 additional square feet of potential growth in those areas over the next 25 years. Since that initial workshop, the 35% submission was submitted in September, and then a subsequent review was conducted in October. And then the 65% report, as that continues to work through the process, will be in December. And in January, it'll continue to track forward into completion. So that's our future. For ongoing infrastructure projects, I'll just hit on a couple of our bigger projects. So the new auto maintenance facility is at 65% complete with an estimated completion date in December of this year. That's going to be a strong support for us. Artesia, combined with our FLETC PO vehicles that we support in that auto shop, are just right at 500 and change. And the current facility we had was original to the purchase of this campus or this facility back in the late 80s, and it's just not sufficient to meet that need. So that's going to be a great plus for Artesia once that's up and running. And then the active vehicle barrier systems at the East facility and the range have been completed and are fully functional. The explosive demonstration range area that supports the Uniform Police Training Program will be completed this week. And the enclosed conveyance facility is at 99% and just waiting some punch list items. So some great success, even through the COVID when it hit in March and we had some subsequent delays. Those projects kept marching through, and it's just a testament to the hard work and that our staff and the professionals that they've added to that. And lastly, talk a little bit about some of the COVID. So on center here in Artesia has been very manageable, but we have seen uptick and increase in the last couple of weeks. That's kind of commensurate with what we're seeing in the local community in Southeast New Mexico and the state overall. There's been a rise in COVID cases. The positive cases specific to FLETC Artesia have affected both contract, our PO, our ROM students, and our student and our FLETC staff. So it's been across the board. All the cases have been generated from outside the facility, with the majority being generated within family groups, family cross contacts, and then the subsequent positive COVID cases. And while safe on-site COVID practices have been very successful, I still want to encourage everyone to stay the course, as they've proven to be very effective, both here in the facility, as been alluded to with the previous presenters, and then also in your private life once you're off the site. So now I'd like to introduce Charleston Site Director Wayne Anderson, and thank you.
All right, thank you, Terry, and good morning, everyone. So unfortunately, I guess we all have to begin with a COVID-19 update, but I promise you that's going to be a very small part of my message to share with you this morning. We currently have no students in Charleston that are testing positive for COVID-19. We have a couple of contractors that we are continuing to manage that are in home isolation, but again, the good news, no positive students to report this morning. I do have a very positive message that I'd like to share with you from CBP. So I heard from the director of the Field Operations Academy, Mr. Holzer, just a little earlier, that they graduated session 523 of their basic training yesterday. Now, those of you here in Charleston in particular will recall that session 523 was the last of 4 classes that was sent to train here in Charleston back in June when we reconstituted training. And with yesterday's graduation, 167 students returned to the field from those 4 classes. And most impressive about that fact was that 57 formerly positive COVID cases were among those 167 that have now graduated. So the FOA director and I know Director Walters and Deputy Director Fallon certainly want to, thank you for the great job that you all did in helping to put those mitigation policies and procedures in place that allowed that to be possible. So thanks for all the great work. I also want to share with you where we are now with our master planning process. We are actually at 100% now, so it is complete. We actually began the process in November of last year, so here we are 1 year later at the 100% mark, which is certainly no easy feat. So thanks for the great work and the contributions of many of you on this call. We now have a solid plan that is set to take us through the year of 2045. And while doing so, it addresses the many known choke points that we currently have here in Charleston, to include things like our firing ranges, our dormitories, the size of our galley, and also our aging classroom facility. So additionally, we've also worked with the Coast Guard. You heard Director Walters allude to this earlier, throughout that whole process to ensure that we are not only meeting FLETC's needs, but we're also creating a separate enclave that will meet the needs of the Coast Guard going forward. And that really takes me over to my last point to share with you, and that is that I just wanted to give you a quick update on the property exchange with the South Carolina State Port Authority. This has been years in the making here in Charleston, and we're finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel in that regard too. So we have officially given administrative control of our property on the other side of Bainbridge Avenue over to the Coast Guard. Now they will in turn, they will transfer that property over to the South Carolina State Port Authority. And in fact, that is set to be done by December 18th of this year. The Port Authority will then simultaneously sign over to DHS, what is today known as Veterans Terminal. And I can also share that we have let the contract for the A&E firm that will be designing our facilities that must now be replicated on the Veterans Terminal property. So that kickoff meeting is actually scheduled for Thursday of next week. So a lot of good progress there, completion of the master plan, and it looks like very, very close here by the end of the calendar year to finishing up the property exchange as well. So again, thanks for all the great work for all of you here in Charleston, and certainly those of you that support us from afar. And that's really all I have to share this morning. And with that, I'll turn it over to the site director up in Cheltenham, Mr. Friend Walker. Friend?
Hey, thank you, Wayne. Good morning, everyone. We're excited here at Team Cheltenham. It feels like we're finally getting back into a training rhythm. This week alone, we're doing firearms requalification every weekday, all day, with multiple agencies, including our big user and partner, the Metropolitan Police Department. We're doing a driver's training with our federal air marshals. We're doing a foreign affairs counter threat class with TSA and the U.S. Coast Guard. This is the first FAC class since March. It was badly needed, and we're really happy about that. We're also conducting firearm instructor training program with multiple agencies, and our partners, the Pentagon Force Protection Agency and the U.S. Capitol Police, are conducting a training orientation program and a recruit officer class, respectively. And we know there's lots more coming in the week ahead. I've got to say and give a shout out to MRSD. We're grateful for the assistance from the Mission and Readiness Support Directive for them working on our infrastructure improvements. Now, we've had some challenges with water and our buildings, and they're building us a path forward. So we're very happy about that. We're also happy that they're working hard helping us acquire the adjoining 124 acres, which belongs currently to the Department of Energy. We know once we get that, that'll be a big help to us. Some good news, we opened a small self-serve galley here on Cheltenham, which gives our staff, faculty, and students some on-campus refreshments and food options. We've been putting up a good fight against COVID. As you know, we're in a hot spot here for the nation, but our folks are doing well with the social distancing, the wearing the mask, the hygiene measures, the screening and the testing that we're doing. And we've had a few positive cases on campus, but none of our high contact instructors or our volunteers that are doing the testing of them have tested positive. So big job, good job, well done on that, congratulations. Now, as the director has said, 2020 has been a challenging year, but we have an opportunity to help others who are less fortunate. let me encourage you during the combined federal campaign just to go to givecfc.org and show the love at a charity of your choice. It could really make a difference in someone's life. So again, thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity. It's my honor to take us back to our director, Director Walters.
Thanks, friend. Appreciate that. Well, thanks to all our speakers today and our public affairs and our chief information officers for making this gathering possible. This is a sort of new territory for us, and we're getting pretty good at these team meetings too. So thanks to everybody on that. Thanks to you all for participating in this briefing as well. And let's continue to do great things together. Remember, there's always more to come.